Welcome back to the Kick-Ass Show, your number one source for living empowered as an entrepreneur, a side hustler, and an overall bootstrapping badass. I am your host, Michael Anthony, and today's show is look, you better strap in because today's show is going to be lit for anyone desiring to move their financial picture forward and understand what the heaven is going on in crypto. So today, I'd like you to welcome our guests. We have David Schwartz and Paul Bradley, co-founders of GetHedge.io. And David also sits as a director for the Litecoin Foundation. And so, gentlemen, it's an honor and a gift to have you guys on. It's great to see you guys as always.
Yeah, Mike, how you doing, man? Thanks again.
Absolutely. I'm fired up. We've been talking about doing this show for months. And I've been telling people like, hey, there's something coming, for get paid in crypto, and it's here. It's finally here. So why don't you guys go ahead and would you share a little bit about what GetHedge is for somebody listening? Like what is GetHedge?
Yeah, so GetHedge is just it's an easy way to take any of your pay that you get. Could be from a regular job, could be contractor work or commissions or bonuses or whatever it is, and have some of it converted into crypto, right? And then
and what types of crypto?
Yeah, so Bitcoin, Litecoin, and Ethereum.
Okay, so the big three.
And so just imagine imagine a funnel, okay, and then you're pouring dollars into the funnel, and as it comes out the other end, it's coming out the other end in Bitcoin, Litecoin, and Ethereum. And it can either land exactly where the funnel directs it to, or you can tell it to send it to other wallets that you already own. So you have multiple locations in which you can send the crypto after it's been converted. But basically, it becomes like this filter that magically changes it, and it comes out the other end as one of those three, or all three of those. Doesn't really matter. Your choice is yours.
Okay. And also, as far as just as a to clarify and disclaimer and stuff like that, guys, there's a link I'm putting down below right here, gethedge.io/Michael Anthony. Use that. And I honestly, I don't even know what I get. I get something though, it's an affiliate link. So I do benefit from this. That said, I really don't give a shit what I benefit from because this product is legit. This product is amazing. And I've watched as far as I've known Paul for a number of years, and I've now for about a year or so I've known David, and I've watched these guys on their journey. And you want to talk about living empowered. You want to talk about not giving up. You want to talk about believing in something and being willing to fight for it. These guys are the epitome of that. And so I have not seen another product. There are products that sound like it on the market, but there's nothing that does as seamlessly and as easily and efficiently as GetHedge.io/Michael Anthony. That as far as out there from that standpoint. And so that's why, as far as I have these guys on, and you're hearing about this right now from that standpoint. So, all right, I just had to throw that out there. So as far as now, is this something where, okay, I'm self-employed.
Mm-hmm.
So is it something only for self-employed individuals? Like, what if someone's working at a job, and their company, their HR, they don't mess with crypto, or maybe their boss talks shit about crypto, and or the founder of their company is come out against crypto. What would you say to, if they're like hesitant, to get, do something through their work for getting paid? What's your answer to that?
Well, the beautiful thing is the employer doesn't ever have to actually know that you're receiving crypto, because in reality, you're receiving dollars initially into a bank account that's created for you when you sign up. So it's like a regular direct deposit. So there's no tax implications towards the employer or the employee, because everything is still like a regular transaction of money for the amount of work that was done, right? And it's done in
Okay.
dollars. Um, but once it hits that account that's been set up for you, that's when you've already told us ahead of time what you want it to be automatically converted into. So you got the initial receiving of the dollars like you would any other time through a direct deposit, and then
So
you,
so you're
yeah,
saying that essentially just the same as if I just wanted to have my paycheck split between a couple
yeah.
bank accounts, I just go to HR and I hand them a sheet that says, "Hey, deposit, is it a percent or is it a dollar amount or
It's
is
a
it?"
dollar amount. Yeah.
Either depends on your payroll app, but my payroll app allows me to do a percentage,
Okay.
but a dollar works. Ultimately, it'll be a dollar based
Okay.
number.
It's a dollar number that comes into our ecosystem, right?
Yep.
So
Okay.
whatever your payroll service annotates, that's fine. But for us, it's really just dollars that are coming
Okay.
in.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
so then it's, $50 or $100 or $1,000 per
Right.
paycheck. That is it per paycheck, per month? What how does that get factored?
Well, again, I mean that could be whatever. I mean, usually it would be per paycheck, right? So anytime you're getting paid, you're telling them send this amount of money to this direct deposit account.
Okay.
So it could be off cycle, right? Like I said, it could have been a bonus, could have been a commission, could be maybe they're just paying you a little bit early ahead of time. Like some payroll services allow you to get some of your paycheck early. Regardless,
Okay.
however
And so
you have it set up.
that's
Yeah.
something on the back end, like when I have an account with you or the people watching and listening, they have an account with GetHedge. On the back end, they can just go in and select like those different.
Well, look at it. Yeah, it's more like this. We literally, our service is just there's two things. There's a dashboard where you can say, when the money comes in, this is what I want to convert it
Yep.
into. And then there's a profile area that has a bank account and a routing number that you give to your employer. Everything else is done on the employee's end with their employer. Literally, that's all we do is we take in the money, convert it, and send it where you want it to go. That's it. It's very simple, but it's very powerful. So you have $100 come in every paycheck. It gets converted into maybe Bitcoin and Litecoin, and maybe you keep the Bitcoin on hedge and you send the Litecoin out to a cold storage wallet you have, and that happens then every payday until you change whatever your preferences were.
That's so cool. And okay, so I can hear someone saying, well, I already do that through, I have Coinbase or, what, just an exchange, and they just go and buy automatically every pay period or something like
Mhm.
that. What would you say to someone from that standpoint?
You want to take that one?
Yeah, no, I'll take this. So, as an individual, if you have $100 a week you're taking out and putting it into a DeFi platform, that's a great. You're already so far ahead of everyone else.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're not doing anything wrong. Congratulations. But if you want to dial that in to more of a technical dollar cost averaging, efficient, less transactions, less time in between, it becomes your property within a matter of hours, not 5 to 10 days later. It's your money, it's your asset, it's in your wallet, whatever wallet you want it to be in, the same day you get paid, released to you. So if you were to manually do each one of those steps, it would take about 2 weeks, because each one of those platforms are going to want to hold that asset, make sure there's no fraud. The fact it comes directly out of your bank account is a completely different consumer transaction
Hmm.
legally through the Fed than getting paid from payroll.
Really?
So, yeah, no. So once it hits your bank account, it's an ACH debit. Someone is drawing those monies out. And as a bank account holder, you can say that I didn't want that to happen and bring that money back. That's why the Bitcoin exchanges hold your funds for 10 days and charge you 3 and 4%, because there's a lot of risk involved from consumer transactions. This takes the risk out, it takes the fees out, it takes the time delays out, and it treats it as if it were your money that you need from payday. And we don't know of another service that provides that.
Wow. All right. So you just talked about fees on things, and so would it be safe to say, like, what do fees look like, or what from? I mean, you guys got to be making money somewhere. So what?
Business. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So how does that work versus as far as like on a I'm just using Coinbase, but we'll just say an exchange.
So there are a couple of answers to that.
Okay.
The first answer is going to be very clear where you can understand it. We're approaching this. I think if you were to go to Coinbase and buy $100, they're going to charge you a flat fee. There's going to be a 2 or 3 percentage point fee. And then the monies are moving. There's an arbitrage where they're buying the lowest but selling you the high. There are all these places where there are fees incurred. And then you have Bitcoin that moves so fast up and down that if you put in $100 with no fees, you're not going to get $100 at the other side because it fluctuates. So it's really difficult for the average consumer to put their finger on what their fees are actually being paid.
Like real fee, real cost.
There's companies that take advantage of that. There's a company now that says every trade is free, right? And they want people to think, oh, this is safe. There are no transaction fees, but their back-end providers, the same back-end provider we have, their banks are like we know the costs associated with this that is not free. It is not free. So we charge currently from the amount of money that hits this account. So the gross amount, if you put in $100, we charge 1.5%. So it'd be $1.50, and that's it. There are no other fees. There are no
That's really low.
fees. And most importantly, for the average person, if there is any kind of, hey, it's free in any capacity, they will get their money from you. They want you to trade. Their system, it's set up like a casino. You're going to lose. There's no such thing as free. So if anyone ever tells you Bitcoin's free, you need to take a big step back and understand what they're selling you. So from that standpoint, we charge 1.5% of the total amount in. And then that allows you to do whatever you want on an additional step. We'll receive it and then put that in any wallet anywhere in the world that you want. Those are technically 2 steps on an exchange. So you're getting all these values built into this one transaction that's just smooth. It's clean. It lands. We don't hold it. It's yours. And there's a lot of risk in us doing that. So we have to have a little bit of money for our insurance coffers. But for the most part, we are hungry. We're trying to get out in the marketplace. And we just think we're leading with a lot of value. So we're always open for feedback. If someone can show us where we can provide more value, where we can still pay our bills, we've designed this entire piece to have very little overhead, very little moving pieces. All of our customer support are legacy pieces. So we keep our overhead down and we are reflecting that in our pricing. So we feel very strongly and very confident about that approach. How's that for an answer about your fees?
No, you bring up a very valid point.
Hey guys, Michael Anthony here, and I have a question for you. Are you out of work or unhappy with your career? Are you tired of your boss giving you crappy raises? How about not being able to provide the life you want for you or your loved ones? Do you earn great money, but you're just tired of being someone else's bitch? If so, I invite you to visit workwithsymmetry.com/change to learn about the career that forever transformed the trajectory of my life. And it could change yours too. Like I said, this career isn't for everyone. But if you're unhappy where you're at, I encourage you to go to workwithsymmetry.com/change and take control of your life.
If somebody is currently doing their own dollar cost averaging, it's one thing. You get charged a fee to convert dollars into crypto. However, if you take it off the exchange, there's another charge from that standpoint. For most exchanges, or I'll say many exchanges. And whereas with you guys, what you're doing is because you're dealing in volume, you get rates that the average consumer doesn't have access to. Like I wouldn't have access to the rates you guys have for conversion. And so you can put a little padding on that. I'm still saving money, you're making money. And at the end of the day, then you're able to do more, for that fee than, some of the big exchanges. Like you can send it out to you said, my wallets or keep it on the wallet that I have through you guys. Like, however simple or complex I want to make it.
Well, I think the key is transparency too, right? We're trying to make sure everybody understands up front, this is how much we're actually charging you. There isn't anything else. And, we're not going to hide fees in the back or any of this other stuff that goes on. We're just going to tell you, this is what we need in order to operate and be functional as a company. And this is a service that we can provide to you. And we've, like I said, we've made this a very simple but powerful product that can grow and expand, as Paul's saying, through suggestions or ideas that we come up with to help better cater to those that use it. But the idea is, as time goes by, those rates hopefully go down, not up, right? Because you're able to provide a better service at maybe a better price somewhere down the line or whatever, instead of jacking up, going from 1.5 to 2.5 to 3.5%. Whereas when you look at an ATM or an exchange, I mean, you're coming in after all fees have been said and done. You're probably coming in anywhere between 4 and 12% is what they're taking from you on any transaction.
Well, that's a Bitcoin ATM. Just a regular ATM. I don't know about you, but I get out at least $300 every time I go to the ATM, whether I need $20 or whatever, because they charge me
so much
a flat fee of $3. And if I get out 20, the percentage on that is through the roof. So I take out as much as I can. Yeah. So it's 1 or 2%, not 6 or 10%.
And they're not even converting anything.
No, they're just giving you the money you already have. So
it's a cash grab.
To pay a little transaction fee to move money around like this is, we're way above the curve in providing the efficiencies that we get, where banks continue to raise rates. Everyone's raising rates right now. And then lastly, in the piece, I think this is important to me because it happened to me once. I put $500, let's say in 2017 on Coinbase, and something happened where I needed that money. It wasn't a smart I needed to pay a bill on that. I need that back. I probably shouldn't have bought 500. I probably should have bought 200, but I need 300 back. I'm stuck. I got to wait 10 days to get that money back. And that can really hurt. So our methodology is, this is your money. We're not a bank. We don't take your money and make money like every bank in the world historically has done. It's your money. That's what Bitcoin, this whole network is. It's yours. So we just mechanically move it, take a tiny little sliver to cover our costs, and then, it's all upfront stuff. So we're pretty happy with where we are, and we're getting some great feedback. But there are people out there that are confusing the market, and it's unfortunate. Also, you have class action lawsuits that are popping up. So when you have these companies say, "Hey, it's free," but then they do the arbitrage on the back, which means they buy the cheapest and sell you the most expensive, and they keep the spread. I think you're going to start seeing a lot of lawsuits popping up because that's violating consumer protection laws. So with anything, it's new. There's a ton of scam out there, and people are seeing what they can get by with. But there's a lot of confusion out there. So thanks for asking us about that. Fees are a very sensitive thing. And so we've made it just a very digestible, easy thing to talk about. And we don't drive Lambos. We're the salt of the
Hey,
earth, like your listeners, and we're fighting. We have fought this fight for so long without the venture capital, without people writing us $1 million checks. We've been, what is it been twice now? Someone's tried to buy the company and make us employees and give us money and take. No, you're missing the point. No revolution or change will come when you buy us and I go buy a Lambo and you never see me again. Like, that's not why we're doing this. I
so
had a great job before I started this.
yeah, well, that actually, so there's two main things I wanted to dive into here today, aside from people understanding what GetHedge is, and that's the origin story and the journey you guys have been on. And then as far as talking about the current state of crypto. So let's because there, I guarantee there's some people watching and listening going, why the hell would I buy any crypto? And that's I have a lot of opinions. I want to hear yours. Let's though dive into kind of the origin of Hedge, because I talk about, this is the number one source for living empowered, for entrepreneurs, side hustlers, and bootstrapping badasses. And you guys have had, I believe, Hedge during the journey. You guys have fallen into all three categories where this has been a side hustle, because you've had to pay your bills through other things, bootstrapping badasses, and your entrepreneurs. And so let's dig into that a little bit for the viewers. And let me say just real quick, if you're watching, if you're listening, hit subscribe, share this show. It doesn't cost you anything to engage. However, it does cost to create. So the price of admission, look, show your love, support, and spread the word if you would. Boom. All right. So how long have you guys known each other? Like, are you guys like lifelong friends that were like, hey, we're gonna get into crypto with this Hedge thing and getting paid in crypto? Like, how did Hedge even come about?
So I'll take the first part of this, then I'll hand it over to David.
Okay.
We didn't know each other. We had no business relationships. I was working at a publicly traded bank building payment networks through the bank, efficient ACH, credit cards, all electronic movement. That's my space. Got involved in a payment company who wanted to make it to where you could pay a merchant in Bitcoin. So that was the metric back then, and even today, but I don't think it's real today. Back then, I did believe it. That when McDonald's and Walmart and all these big box stores took Bitcoin and Litecoin, the ship had arrived, right? We're acclimated, we're headed in the right direction. But I don't believe that anymore. But at the time, I really did. So I took it upon myself to begin figuring out how to accept Bitcoin. And then the businesses would get US dollar because they didn't care what it was. It's just, saw it as a credit card transaction, and people got settled in the back end. So that was my journey. It started in the banks.
And you created the first on-off ramp, right? For crypto?
Not for crypto. Bitcoin beat me to the punch, but I was part of the team that created with the banks the first assortment. So it was Bitcoin, Litecoin, Ethereum. It wasn't just Bitcoin, and Litecoin was included in that. And you realize there's a lot of utility going on in these presents. So I did what I did. I built it out. I went through a massive internal the bank war. I declared war on the bank. I didn't realize it, but so we built it all out. It worked. We were in Forbes, got all these accolades, but there just wasn't any volume. And that's when I realized not everybody spends their Bitcoin. Then because of that project, I got hooked up with David and the Litecoin Foundation. I got to meet Charlie Lee. I started going to the Litecoin Summit and really understood that we were on the same team. I just didn't realize it yet. And then that led me to understanding the money flow. And the real money flow, if you want to build a product, was not people selling their Bitcoin to buy a cup of coffee. It was people saving their coffee money to buy a Bitcoin. So the flow goes from fiat to crypto, and not so much crypto to fiat, unless you're buying a new car every 4 years or your dream guitar or whatever your big purchase is. So all the flows, everything was about fiat to crypto. I felt like I could do that from a banking standpoint. And then this genius tells me his idea and almost laugh in his face. I'm like, nobody's ever going to do that. And a year later, that was the model everyone's going for. So his creativity and understanding the crypto side and what people needed, and my creativity in the banking world, which is a relative term because there's not much creativity in banking, but I'm a creative banker for whatever that's worth. I was able to take his ideas.
I mean, you got a man bun, Paul. You're a creative banker.
It's my mad scientist hair. So we've done some mad scientist stuff with money and banking. And the next thing you know, we've got huge legacy executives in the Super Bowl, private meetings, and working our path for us. It began to outgrow us. And we started getting help from some pretty unusual places. And I love David, man. I could not do what I'm doing with all the experience I have without David. So I'm proud to be his co-founder.
You know, there's something really special to be said about having a partner in creativity, you know, a partner in birthing a business or just running maybe less. I don't know if I want to quantify for running a business, because there's different skill sets and things of that, gift mixes when it comes to those. What's that?
Gift mixes. I've never heard that one.
And you know, when it comes to birthing a business though, look, there's, you know, there are solopreneurs and things of that, and there are people that, you know, shit on partnerships and stuff like that. Yet there's a lot of I see more and more in today's world where partnerships are winning. You know, partnerships are winning. And so, you know, if somebody out there, I just want to encourage, if you're out there and you feel lonely going it alone, look, maybe it has to do with trust. Maybe you haven't, you know, had a partner because you aren't trusting someone. Maybe you got screwed over in the past. And perhaps, I'm not saying for sure, perhaps it would be beneficial to let that go. Maybe it isn't beneficial and you hold on. However, if you're not liking the results you're getting in life, perhaps it's time to evaluate and consider something that you haven't considered before. So, all right. So David, let's hear a little bit as far as for you, because Paul, you know, you glazed over some of the, you know, the bumps and things like that. And so, you know, what's the creative side that you've been bringing?
Well, first, I'd like to sort of uh, add to what you just mentioned, because I think there's two keys to it. One's trust, right?
Yeah.
And then the other would be the ability to understand what your strengths and your weaknesses are in an unbiased way, so that you can find somebody that can complement it, or allow somebody in to complement it. Because if you're incapable of doing that, then it really doesn't matter what your strengths and weaknesses are. You're probably going to fail regardless. So I can tell you from personal experience that through this venture with Paul, I've been able to um, hone that skill more than I ever had been able to before. So I did 20 years in the military, mostly HR, and I retired in 2013.
Okay.
And then I did HR for the state of Wisconsin for almost 8 years after that. And in that latter half of the time with the state was when I got involved with crypto, and started out volunteering with the Litecoin Foundation, and then became the director that I am now. But during that volunteer time is when I created and ran the first Litecoin Summit, which was in 2018, and had it in South San Francisco. And that's where I met Paul, which is what he was mentioning earlier. Through that same acquaintance, we were at the pre-summit dinner the night before, and I met Paul. And remembered, obviously, where he was coming from, what he had been a part of, and that then tied into me contacting him about a year or so after that, asking him if he can help me with this dream that I have, based off of being able to have people get their money converted, sort of like in between where they have it sent to where they end up having it, right? Because to me, being from HR, I think one of the things that I always realized was most important with employees was you never mess with their pay, and you never mess with any of their other benefits, and you always try and be upfront with them on how much you are trying to help them, right? So that's most people, they joke about HR and how it's sort of like this heartless group of people that are there to tell them what they can and can't do and whatever. And those are all parts of the job that I never really cared for at all, but it's all part of it, right?
It comes with the territory.
I always cared about the personal side of HR. So like sitting down with an unhappy worker who, for whatever reason, just can't seem to get along with their coworkers, or is having some problems at home and now it's affecting their work. And sometimes in those closed door sessions, you find out more about a person than you probably ever wanted to, but you also find out what makes people tick. And one of the things I realized from the pay side of it was people work hard and they want to be able to enjoy things without having to worry about how the money flows, how they receive the money. They just want it to be there for them because they've already done all the work. They don't want to have to constantly keep working to make it show up where they want it to be, how they want it to be. So if there's a way of making that happen through some sort of a consistent, seamless flow, that would be great. And so when I'm in the crypto space and I'm watching, everything on social media and how people talk, it just seemed like this was one of those hurdles where if we were able to get an answer to where people could basically get paid, but then they see it come in as crypto. Now you've associated the real world or the regular world with the crypto side, and they can identify it in the same way that they identify with how they normally get paid anyway, which is key, right? And so this idea just sort of morphed, and then I got to a point where, because I've never run a business before, I've never been an entrepreneur, I've never, none of those things. I was literally, think about the cleanest slate you could possibly have, because everything I had ever done before that was government related, right? So everything was very consistent. I never had to worry about my paychecks. I didn't have to worry about getting laid off. None of those things, right? But to put yourself out there and try and build a business with pretty much zero base to go from was very eye-opening. And so the first 9 months of what I was trying to do was really just a dream, and then learning as you go. And it was very, very tough. And it got to a point where I realized, oh man, there's this thing called, money transfer licenses and all this other stuff going on. And I was like, how am I supposed to maneuver through this? I don't have any of this expertise. And so then um, I remembered Paul, and I remembered some of the things that we had talked about during that dinner, and how, money flows and, different things. And so I just reached out to him and asked him if he had an idea or a way of helping out. And he just completely loved the idea. And from that point on, we started working together. And then it became very obvious that he was the type of partner or co-founder that could really make this thing blow up. And so that's what we ended up doing. And that's
So,
where we are today.
so you had to go through, I'll call it a period of winter. Am I hearing that? Where it was like, excuse me, you had to walk through on your own
Yeah.
to come to the end of your journey, to realize I've done everything I know I'm capable of. And so you were open. Like, were you open to a partner prior to that, or was it something that it just didn't enter
Yeah,
your head? Or
it started out as a partnership with another individual that that I'm friends with, but it became clear early on that we had different ideas of where our lives would feel more successful. And so there was it was a mutual parting of ways in that respect. But I realized early on, talking to Charlie Lee, he's a friend, and he's mentored me in some ways, including this business. um, he made it very clear. He goes, many times, just to keep you in balance and to be able to keep your mind clear, you need to have a good co-founder, a partner that you can trust. And it should be someone that has varying skills from you, and sometimes even complete different, not necessarily ideologies, but different thoughts on processes and big picture stuff, so that you can you don't want a bunch of yes men, and you don't want a bunch of people that are just going to blindly do whatever you command them to do, or whatever else. You want people that are going to bring value, but also bring positive conflict resolution with them, right? So conflict resolution doesn't have to be negative. It's something where you end up having discussions and are able to have different views and arguments on something, but then you come to a decision together that's best for all and best for the company. And that's what positive conflict resolution is, and it's a healthy thing. So it just seemed like Paul literally was able to provide either the knowledge and the experience that I didn't have, and or the thoughts and ideas and whatever experiences he had in businesses before, to that as well, to help everything grow, so that it wasn't about me, it was about the company, right? So the reason why we use Hal as a mascot is so that the concentration isn't on an individual that runs the company. Like, you see some companies, whoever's running it is sort of like the public figurehead, and that's who people look up to. But people are fallible, people make mistakes, nobody's perfect. They can make bad decisions, business wise or personal wise or whatever. And so having a mascot as the thing that people focus on when they think of hedge, they see the hedgehog Hal. That's better to me than having an individual who could end up doing something wrong, and then everybody just points at the individual, and then the company is now crap because of an individual, when in reality it's a group of people.
that's good. That's very solid. And for those of you watching, I actually wrote down here to talk about Hal. Paul, will you show them Hal on your sweatshirt there?
Oh yeah, this is Hal.
Hal the Hedgehog.
That's
Hal the Hedgehog. Now, who is Hal named after?
Hal's named after Hal Finney, who was a key developer for Bitcoin in the early days. He worked directly with Satoshi Nakamoto. He received the first Bitcoin transaction from Satoshi himself. He was a big proponent of everything that you know and see about Bitcoin today. And so we figured it was a great way to pay homage to to one of the key developers of why we're even here to begin with. So
That's awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome. All right. So in our culture, entrepreneurship, in my opinion, tends to get, what's the word I'm looking for? It's not
Diluted?
idolized. What's that?
Diluted?
The work part of it is it's like, they see, a Lambo or a yacht or I'm traveling around the world in my private jet and all this sort of stuff, and they skip the struggle. They skip the growth. They skip as John Maxwell talks about, the uphill of the journey. And so would you guys be willing to share a little bit about, like, has there been any uphill? Has there been any points when you felt like, shit, this may be the end, on your journey? And
I think a better question is, are there any times I don't feel that way? Because we were talking about this last night at dinner. I've never worked so hard and been so passionate about the day-to-day, the consistency. That's what's hard for me, is consistency. And so it's a lot of work and a lot of effort. And I was telling David, if I didn't love it, it would be a real burden, but I love it so much. I don't know what else I would do if I wasn't doing this. So it is a worthy battle, a worthy match, and I'm up for it. Let's keep fighting. I love it.
So good. What you mentioned that consistency there, Paul. What has helped you? If because consistency, being consistent, is not an uncommon struggle for.
So what's helped me has been David. He talks about conflict resolution. I bring the conflict. He resolves it. So we're good. He's a great partner.
So just having healthy, open, honest conversations with each other, like.
Yeah, we've had the good conversations and we've had the hard conversations, and I think the coolest part about it is he always tells me, and he's like, "I love you to death, man. You're my brother, but I got to tell you this one thing or whatever," and then we work it out, and it goes great. And it's interesting. I wouldn't have embraced that when I was a lot younger, like when I was in my early 20s. Or I grew up in a family where it was a lot easier to take whatever problems there were and kind of just shove them down underneath a carpet and pretend like they're not there, right? And then just be happy and move on with life. And at some point, the carpet becomes so bumpy, you're very unhappy with it, right?
Yeah.
But I ended up marrying a woman who comes from Europe and is German, and they're very blunt people, right? And not like people take it perhaps in a mean way, but they're just being honest, and they're not doing it to hurt you. It's usually unfiltered. It's just very.
She says blunt. What everyone's thinking and no one says.
Exactly.
But everyone's thinking it.
But everybody's thinking it, but she's the one that gets to say it, and then they can either be happy with it or unhappy with her or whatever, but she has no problem saying it. And so her and I had this unique marriage at the beginning where it was trying to learn each other's cultures, languages, and everything else going along with it. But then, this difference in how to even talk about things that need to be talked about that might be uncomfortable. And over time, I realized and appreciated how much easier life is in general when you're just able to tell somebody what's going on and why you feel like that might need to be fixed, or or even something about yourself where you're trying to get some quality feedback because you want to try and make a change or whatever, right? Yeah. And so that also helped prepare me for this venture with Paul too, because in the military, it was really sort of like you don't get to voice your opinion, really. It's you're told these are the things that need to happen, and I don't care how you're going to make them happen, or I'm going to tell you every step of how it's going to happen, but I don't really need your feedback necessarily, right? And so to be able to be in something like this where not only is my feedback valued, but everybody else's is too, is great. I love it. And so if that means hearing something maybe I don't necessarily want to hear or I wasn't even thinking about, so be it, because it's going to be better for everybody long term.
That's powerful. What would you say, David, to someone who they're listening and they're like, oh my gosh, that's me. Like, David, you're reading my mail. I've struggled with, like, I grew up in that type of culture or family or, what have you, to where it's, let me just sweep things under the rug. And I want to grow. I want to change my habits. What's something you would recommend for them? Where can they start?
Start with their relationships, their family relationships, or close friendships that they have. And if it's not something that's been normal, you try and make it, you ease it in as a normal part of conversations with those key people, right? Because you'll find actually pretty quickly there's probably going to be some either pushback at the start, because they're not used to you wanting to engage in that way.
Yep.
But after a while, a few things start getting cleared up and people feel more open, and the relationships are more real, and people actually appreciate that, and they'll respond to it. But there may be some bumps at the beginning of it. So
so at the beginning of it, what am I wanting to ask? How did you handle, like, I don't know if you there, I don't come across this way. However, I care a lot about other people's opinions on things, and that's an area like I've had to grow in, to move forward in spite of giving a shit, about other people's opinions. And so I feel like a lot of people struggle in being real and authentic because they get tripped up in, what if someone says something, or they do say something like with it, and it's this, wait a second, who do you think you are? Like, you've behaved this way for the last 20 years and now you're coming in.
You got to be ready. You got to be ready for that too, because it's a lashback, right? But it's there could be truth to it too. It's just they've never had the opportunity to tell you before. So the one thing we've always told our kids growing up was, you can tell anybody anything, but it's how you present it to them that's going to matter, and that's how, it's going to help how they receive it and digest it, right? So and then on the receiving end of that, if for any reason something somebody tells you triggers you, then there may be something to what they're telling you, because otherwise you wouldn't get that upset about it per se, right?
Yeah.
So always, people talk about emotional intelligence. I think emotional intelligence is key to relationships as well. So being able to understand how you react to things, why you react to things, when are you reacting to things, and how are you seeing it as they're telling you. Those are all really, really important. And so it doesn't mean that you're going to be able to take everything the right way and be able to receive something and then turn it around and be able to use it in a positive way. Sometimes you might just get too blinded by the emotion to realize that your emotional intelligence has gone somewhere else for the day, right? Because it happens. We're all human beings.
Yeah.
But if you find yourself after a day or two still going back and reflecting on a conversation and then realizing, okay, they meant this and this was meant in a good way, and so on and so forth, then you're making progress, and that's really all that matters.
Progress. Highly underrated in today's world, in my opinion. Progress. It's like, it's that gradual, progressive realization of a worthy goal. All right. So now we're going to transition to what I've been looking forward to diving in. What the hell is going on in crypto?
We're all doomed.
So in all seriousness though, like, I actually even released a show a couple months ago where I was like, hey, there's a lot of variables out there. However, my gut says that there's going to be a little dip, and then it's going to, skyrocket up. It's going to reach the end of the season, and then go down. Things are not going according to plan. And for GetHedge, excuse me, for dollar cost averaging in crypto, people may be going, oh my gosh, maybe it is just a Ponzi scheme. Maybe it is just a, this flavor of the minute. And boy, I'm glad I didn't, put more money into crypto. What's your response to that thought process?
I think that's a very normal response. I think that also shows, if someone were to just say that, I could step back and say to myself, I bet they've only been in the space a couple of years, because nobody who's been in the space more than 1 or 2 cycles is saying that, because they've seen it all before. This is maybe a dramatic, but it's at nighttime, that's the end of the world, because daytime will never come again. So we might as well just have a last party and drink some Kool-Aid and kill ourselves, because that's the last time we're ever seeing the sun. And that's not necessarily correct logic.
Yeah. So, okay. So you don't subscribe to that. What kind of vantage point or viewpoint do you have when you look at crypto succeeding? What kind of timeline are you looking at?
Well, define succeeding, because from the standpoint, everyone in the last cycle said, if Bitcoin could be used as payment and stores accepted Bitcoin, then adoption has happened. And it doesn't look like that, but it has happened. So there's so many MasterCard and Visa cards that you're able to make procurements with your crypto. There's no store in the world that doesn't take crypto via card at the moment. So, I think crypto's here. I think what we're seeing now is not necessarily what you think you should be seeing. Everyone's looking to the future to say, where is it going to happen? But what we're seeing right now, this is just my opinion. I'm not a technologist and I'm not financial advice.
Great disclaimer. This is all just a conversation of 3 dudes talking about their personal opinions, not financial advice, not legal advice, not investing advice.
So in theory, that's where my head is. Everyone's looking forward to see where's the super cycle, but the real action this time is behind us. The notion that Bitcoin's going to zero has disappeared. So you're looking for this milestone in front of you, but the real heavy activity has been the establishing of these payments and the notion it's not going away. So I think the next cycle, and this is where a lot of people have different opinions. I believe it's a 4-year cycle, and maybe this cycle's come and gone. A lot of people say that it's becoming more normal, so the highs and the lows of a 4-year will begin elongating into just one long cycle. And that could be what we're seeing. So you could have a really strong spring and a really strong 2022. But all the hardware and all the new generation mining equipment and all this stuff that we need now still looks to be down the road 6-18 months for the really good stuff to hit the market, and these obscene prices and hardware to start mellowing where normal people can get in there. So Bitcoin's not going to zero. That's the big news I took from this cycle. My portfolios are a lot better off than they were in 2020. But I'm not expecting to wake up any day and have so much wealth on my hands. I don't, the big lottery win probably has come and gone this cycle. That's just my opinion. But the super cycle we're all expecting to see, boy, it is lining up for the next cycle. We just had to go take care of some business in our rear view this cycle, is my thought.
Okay. So when you say super cycle, you're talking about 4-year, historical 4-year cycles.
Yeah. Bitcoin doing just, there's no doubt it's flying off the charts. It's screaming. Everyone's, I don't feel that happen this cycle.
Okay. And so in your personal thoughts currently today, which could change tomorrow and change a week from now. Yeah. You feel like, hey, the peak has happened in this cycle, and there's still a chance that later in the we'll see come the spring, come the fall, if there's additional bumps that happen. But you feel like, hey, we peaked out. Now do you believe we're going into a winter, or what is that?
Again, this is just theory. This is just Paul talking. Because we did not have this massive high gaining session. I really think the zeros disappeared off the tail, and we may have come down a lot of the way already. So there may be a lot of growth in front of us, but it won't be part of this cycle. We're cooling down, and that will cause the next cycle to begin sooner and be stronger and have a lot more fundamentals underneath it. Because Litecoin, for example, its big technology they're pushing out is that Mimblewimble MWeb privacy piece. Well, in theory, that would have had to be released last year for it to hit the big high and create that sizzle and excitement. It wasn't. It's technology. It comes out when it's ready. It's a cake in the oven. It's ready now. Will we see the highs carry forward because it comes out a little late? Or does that begin the really strong next cycle that limits the loss, that kind of mellows the winter? I don't know the answer to that. But I will say, based on my experience in this market, whatever I think it is, that's not what's going to happen. It's something you don't see that makes perfect sense in hindsight, but I don't know what that is.
Yeah. David, what's your thoughts of what's going on?
Yeah, I think I have some of the similar thoughts that Paul does, but I think we have some differing areas too. So I mean, that's the beauty of this too, right? Is everybody has their own. We're all probably right in some respect, and all probably wrong in some respect too. So my idea is that we're in this. I think we're breaking away from a 4-year cycle pattern in some capacity, right? And is that a good thing? Yeah, I personally think it's probably a good thing, because that 4-year cycle becomes the self-fulfilling prophecy thing, where it's like, if you're aware of it, you're able to, maneuver through it in a way to where you benefit from it if you're smart about it. If you've never been a part of it before, man, it's a huge slap in the face, and it takes a long time to.
It's an ice bath. It wakes you up quick.
Hey, that 4 years, man, felt like forever, from 2017 until this year. I mean, now granted, there were a lot of things like I went all in on crypto. Like anything that was savings or stocks or whatever I had, I'd put it into crypto. So when I did that, I rode the waves wherever the waves were going, and it was pretty hard sometimes, because you still have regular life happening every day, right? But with a break of that 4-year cycle, and having something more about, like what Paul mentioned, where now you have your ups and downs, and perhaps you still have 30% drops and whatever else, but you're not having 80 to 90% from an all-time high for like a 2-year period where it's down that far, right? Maybe it's only 50% or or something like that. And so those become less and less volatile over time. And so I think we're kind of, this is my hope, that we're breaking out of a 4-year cycle type pattern and it's becoming more of a normal thing. And the reason why I feel like that could possibly be is because when we were talking about 4-year cycles and the things that hadn't happened yet in the crypto space, that now some of those things have happened. Like there's a lot of infrastructure in place that wasn't there 4 years ago. There's a lot of institutions that are investing in it that weren't investing in it back then, or at least weren't talking about investing. Maybe they were, maybe they weren't. You didn't have sovereign states adopting it as legal tender like you do now with El Salvador.
Yep.
And granted, that's an economy that's, in the grand scheme of things, it's not a large economy. It's a country that's had a lot of issues internally. It seems like they have a president who's trying to right a lot of those ships, and he's making a big bet, and I think it's the right bet in that, as much as the IMF would like that they don't do anything with Bitcoin, in reality, they're taking their future into their own hands instead of having somebody else dictate it to them and saying, yeah, I think this is what we're going to try and do. And there's really nothing that you personally can do to stop that at this time anyway. Now, granted, there are ramifications to that maybe we don't know about, that the world can do to them, right? But at the same time, I feel over the next, 6 months to 2 years, you're going to see other countries break away from the cool kid group and actually start doing what El Salvador is doing.
And so would you share for those watching, those listening?
Yeah.
They may not know about what happened in El Salvador this past June.
Yeah. So in June, El Salvador put up a bill to be proposed that allows Bitcoin to be considered legal tender for the entire country, just like the US dollar, because it's been a country that's had the US dollar as its main currency since 2001. And so then, in 2021, it decided to have a bill and pass a law here in September that said that Bitcoin also now is legal tender. And as much as a merchant or a company is able to, based off of their internet capabilities, they should be accepting Bitcoin as legal tender throughout the country. And so what that does, according to the president, is allows, because 70% of their country is not banked, it allows that 70% now to have the same type of payment capabilities and receiving capabilities as somebody who has a bank account. And that gets
powerful.
lost. Yeah, that gets lost on first world countries like us, where it's normal for your kid to have a bank account and they're not even employed, right? Or a savings account or whatever. We're talking about grown adults in their 50s and 60s who have been working their entire adult life that don't have a bank account, right? And that is very normal in a lot of countries around the world. We just don't realize that. So for them to be able to say, we're bringing an alternative currency along with the dollar that people can use. And by the way, this one, you don't need a bank account necessarily, but you're still able to transact and buy a loaf of bread and receive money just like everybody else. That's paradigm shifting for them. So that's why I'm saying that's a smart move for that country to do, because they weren't getting help to do anything else at that point. Where was the IMF when they needed them the last 30 years, right? It wasn't there. So for the IMF to tell them, well, we don't think it's good for you to be doing this because there's volatility and it's not secure for your citizens. Well, those citizens didn't have squat before Bitcoin. So volatility is welcome because at least they have something, right? And they build out the infrastructure from there. So I think you're going to see more countries like that over the next 6 to 24 months doing the exact same thing. And you're going to end up having a pocket of somewhere between probably a half dozen to a dozen countries similar to El Salvador saying, yeah, we're going to choose this alternate route as well and see how that works out for us too. And at some point, the cool kid clique is going to have to either accept it or they're going to try and punch them in the face and then see what happens. And I think that's something that I don't think a lot of people are prepared for, is when the big kids on the block who control everything actually try and do something about everybody who's high on Bitcoin. And then what's the response from the community? And when I say community, I mean everybody from me to you to President Bukele of El Salvador, how everybody reacts to that, right? That's the coming of age part that we haven't had yet. And once that happens, Bitcoin is either fully embraced by almost all countries, or it becomes some sort of a personal revolution monetary wise that's part of a larger macro black swan event or something else that happens. I just, we're still, to me, in this some kind of a honeymoon phase where it's a speculative asset. People are excited about it. Some people are benefiting greatly from it. Other people are still blind to what's actually going on. But there is going to be a day of reckoning coming that is going to tip the scale either way. And when that happens, you're going to see really what Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies like Litecoin, what their impact is going to be on the world.
And don't take away from the fact there's another fabric or theme layer to this.
Okay.
And I don't know this to be a fact. Somebody can double check, but I think I'm in the ballpark. But Western Union will lose the annual business for Western Union sending money and remittances to the people of El Salvador. The fees for that annualized for just El Salvador were around $250 million. So you don't have to pay Western Union for these remittances. All of a sudden, that $250 million is gone now out of Western Union's pockets, and then they go to their senator and say, "Hey, what's up with this? Our lobbyists, all your friends, and we've got this great party going on. I'm going to have a hard time paying for this because now I just lost $250 million. Can you guys do something about it?" And a few years ago, those politicians are quick to get in there and start beating their drum about Bitcoin. But what I'm seeing is a little different now. You're seeing the U.S. government stutter a little bit with leadership, and people are scratching their heads. And now you have these same senators who are quick to fight for their lobbyists and such. Well, they own Bitcoin now, and they kind of like it going up. So maybe your problem is now your problem. I'm going to keep my Bitcoin. Things are starting to change from the money. They always say follow the money. That's the real story, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. So, David, you mentioned something that I don't hear talked about a lot. I think about it. I don't hear it talked about a lot. As far as the kind of the rubber meeting the road with the government and really the IMF is just the global monetary system. It's the World Bank. And for those that don't know, and it controls, for lack of better terms, it controls the financing of the world in US dollars.
Right.
And so from that standpoint, when you are seeing these other countries that are popping up and going, hey, there's a potential for some freedom for us out here, and not just freedom from the US. If the dollar loses its status as the global currency in 10 years or 20 years, and the Chinese yen, or I forget how you yan whatever, takes over, well, China is going to be controlling the world, just as the US does currently. Like, there's some country controlling the world. And right now, as US citizens, for those that are in the United States, or even those who are not and yet complicit with it, going, hey, if there's a country that's controlling the world, I'd rather it be the US than the other options. That's kind of where I'm at with that. Not the US isn't the greatest, yet when I look at some of the other options, it might be the least damaging. And by least damaging, I still mean we do a load of damage. That's a dirty world. Whereas Bitcoin and or crypto removes the power of these countries. Do you see, like, how do you see that playing out, David?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting scenario that if I ever claimed I knew what the best answers were, how things were going to play out, then I'm a liar. But I think just from, doing the same thing, thinking about it a lot and trying to understand macroeconomics and, I mean, everything is driven and controlled by whoever controls the money, right? And so it's really, in reality, it's probably not even really governments that control what happens. It's more, whoever's controlling the money sources. I mean, if you think about it, our dollar is borrowed. It's just loans. We run off of loans, and so who's giving out those loans? So that goes back to the central banks and the IMF, and that's where 190 countries are a part of the IMF, right? So those 190 countries, they end up having discussions with the IMFs, individually on what's the best recommended course of action for them going forward to be able to supply and dictate and keep their economies going forward as individual sovereign states, but yet still part of some collective, right? And to be able to say it's America or the Chinese or whoever that are controlling policies and whatnot is, I mean, that's the outer part of what we see. It's not really everything that we see. And so in order to have a currency that's not going to solve everything, a currency that's detached from all the governments, but it's a big deal. It's such a big deal that they would never want that to occur, because the way the world now has been built off of what they've built. And so to be able to say, well, we don't even need that that driver to be a part of our lives in any way. We'd like to have a decentralized, non-governmental currency that's used globally as, either the reserve currency that everything else is then still based off of, or is just a part of the mix in general. They don't want that, right?
Yep.
And so that's why I'm saying there's going to be some kind of day of reckoning where either Bitcoin becomes a part of everything that we do in some way, and it's accepted as that, or they're going to try and squash it. And I think right now we're in that part of it where you're standing on the playground and the bully is kind of pushing your shoulder a little bit to see what you're going to do. He's just trying to size you up. And that's where we're at. We're not any further than that. We haven't been punched in the face yet.
So, yeah, do you, and I guess I'm asking a little bit of a leading question because of who you are and, what you guys do. Do you see Bitcoin, and as Bitcoin goes, so the rest of crypto goes? Do you see crypto getting squashed?
Like officially forever?
Like gone?
Yeah.
No.
I mean, do you see a government coming in and saying, fuck this? Like,
yeah, no, absolutely. It happened last summer with China. They killed whatever kind of rally that was happening, kicked it off shores, and 6 months later, it was completely replaced. China's just no longer a player. So do I see someone trying it? Yeah, no, I haven't stopped seeing some country try it. And the real threat is, an American economist, Milton Friedman. He was alive when the internet was being created and ramped up, and basically said, this is fantastic, and this is going to make governments smaller. You want to take it a step further and make government even smaller, figure out electronic money where the government doesn't have to print money. He said this, I think, in the mid 90s. So I think he was right, spot on when he says, as the technology evolves, governments will be smaller, and governments will fight that. But they're having a really tough time telling you they're your buddy, and they want you to be successful as they're kicking your knees out from underneath you. That's the conflict they're having right now.
Yeah. All right. Well, gentlemen, any last thoughts or anything you want to leave the people, watching, listening to this with?
Yeah. So again, I would just ask you to go at least visit GetHedge.io or
/ Michael Anthony.
/ Michael Anthony, and just sort of understand what this could be for you if you're looking, you're just trying to dip your toe, or you don't really have a lot of experience in crypto. You don't have to. I mean, this is built for you to be able to just prove who you are, get yourself a direct deposit account, and then tell us how you want that $30, $50, $100 every paycheck, how you want that converted, and it can just sit on Hedge then until you figure out what else you want to do. We're not here to make a ton of money. We're here to help.
Well, let me say though, I hope you guys make a shit ton of money. I hope that you have Lambos coming out of your butt in a decade, because you're
painful, but you'll be fine.
Because it's a sign of you guys adding value to millions of people. Like the way that you've structured your company, the way your hearts are, you prosper as you add significant amounts of value to millions of individuals. And you guys have talked about $30, $50. I'm just gonna say, look, some of you listening or watching, you may be like, oh shit, I don't know about this crypto thing. What if it goes to pot and blah blah blah. Well, look, there's a lot of risk. There's risk in everything. You think our current stock market isn't propped up? There was Paul, you and I were talking about, there was some report where it was talking about, as far as, maybe you could speak to the stock market, it's gone up in direct proportion to the amount of money that the Fed has. What's that? Do you remember?
So the gist of what that report was showing the correlation to the Dow Jones average, and how the rate of its growth is equal to that of the rate of the money being put into the system. So real estate, stocks and bonds, all those that have grown since 2010 have grown proportionately to the amount of money that the Fed has printed and put in. So did it create any value? No. The two main pieces that have stuck out as value producers in the last 5 years has been the NASDAQ, so technology, and then the Bitcoin play, which some say is strictly a technology play. So it's really interesting on how that has panned out. But I will say real quick, final words. We started this to help people, and we've been really down in the trenches helping the individuals get through the processes and started and so forth. So a lot of the questions I hear are, I don't know anything about Bitcoin, so my first step is to start learning. But that's the same thing they say 6 months later.
Yeah.
That's a tough road. We're all busy individuals, and this is complicated stuff. So a hedge account is free to create. It's free to log on. It's free to do all this stuff. Put $20-$30 a paycheck into some of the basic stuff for more than a day or two, or a paycheck. Because I will promise you this. I promise this is true. The meals I skipped and the coffees I didn't buy in 2018 and 19, and the big extra gifts for my daughter that I told her, if you sacrifice a little now and we buy this, she wasn't keen on that. But from those, the value created, I paid off a commercial building. I bought a brand new truck cash. I was able to make more important choices for my life than eating that meal out. So I have learned over time, I'm a believer, and it's what keeps me down this road. So don't wait until you know more about electric pieces, and don't wait until you know more about the market than Elon Musk and Michael Saylor. And your first day at Bitcoin, you're going to be an international sensation. That's a daydream. Start pocketing some of this. Start a dollar cost averaging plan to where you won't even miss that money. And in 3 years, you will be on your knees in tears. You're so happy.
Yeah.
That would be my suggestion to any of your viewers.
That's great. And what I love about Hedge is that there's a barrier to entry in the crypto market that you guys have essentially eliminated, because all they need to do is set up an account through you guys, and you take care of everything. So from that standpoint, they don't need to figure out all these other wallets, and they can get it as personal as they want. That said, they just simply set up in a familiar way through you guys, through GetHedge.io/Michael Anthony. And, they just set it up through that. And like, you guys will provide an automatic wallet for them. Like, they can have other ones, but they don't have to go through what company do I choose and all this decision fatigue. It's like, no, just set this up, boom, 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 and you're good. And I just say, guys, if you're like Paul just said, $20 a paycheck. Look, if you were to even do, that's less than $1,000 over a year. Okay. If you're getting paid twice a month, it's $40, $480 or $960 a year. The reality is you're not going to be able to retire off of $960, like from a stock standpoint or a 401k or something like that. There is a potential in crypto that in 30 years where Bitcoin is, I don't know if you could retire off it, but it's going to be a heaven of a lot more. In worst case scenario, look, we don't, like we just talked about, I don't see it ever going to zero, because there's going to be countries, even if the US were to outlaw Bitcoin for whatever reason, which the Fed has gone on record saying it has no intention of doing, even if they changed their tone and did what China did, there are other countries that are not going to outlaw it. They're going to welcome it with open arms, and they're going to bolster their economy, and they're going to bolster long-term the play of Bitcoin. And so that $1,000, I don't see it ever going to zero. Meanwhile, the stock market, that's a pretty big bubble, and being propped up by the Fed. And what do you have? It's not what do you have to gain, it's what do you have to lose. And you have very little to lose right now, and you have a lot to gain. I just say that. I don't know if you guys disagree, but that's my 2 cents.
It's a long-term play. Yeah. This is not dollar cost averaging through something like GetHedge.io is a long-term play that's for everybody to be able to use, and you don't have to you don't have to learn all the trading secrets and do all these different. Literally, you just plug that $20 or $40 in every paycheck and let it do its thing, and just set it and forget about it.
Yep.
And then go back in a few years and you'll be like, holy crap.
Yeah. That was the first Bitcoin I ever bought. I was talking to my buddy and I was like, I might be out a few $1,000s. And this was, back in 2013. And so I was like, I might be out a few $1,000. if it goes to zero and it, it ends up being a, whatever. I was like, however, if it hits $1 million of Bitcoin, I'm doing pretty well. And, that's the potential. Now I see $1 million Bitcoin, inside a reasonable amount of time, maybe a decade. Personally, just with adoption and stuff, maybe longer, but who cares? It's on the grow. So, gentlemen, thank you so much for being on, pouring into the viewers, the listeners. Super grateful to have had you guys on.
I have one more thing to say before you get rid of us.
All right.
So this is all your viewers. Your fearless leader has had twice now come to Miami with us. It was supposed to be a fun vacation for him, but we threw him to the wolves. He bent over backwards. He became a team player. He really has seen the heart of what we do because we've made him do it. and Michael Anthony, you're great. You're a great friend, and thanks for having us on today.
Absolutely. And I look forward to hanging out again at Bitcoin 22 in
where we'll be
little bit. So stop by and say hey if you're at Bitcoin 22. I forget when it is.
April.
April. All right, there we go. Yeah, the first week in April. That's right. So, all right, gentlemen. David, Paul, it's been a pleasure. Guys, keep living your life to the fullest. Take control of your life. Don't take someone else's bullshit as your reality. You live out your dream. You pursue your passion, and you become your full potential. Until next time, keep living your life to the fullest. Peace.
P.S. Don't be a dumbass. Remember, this is a conversation and not meant to be personal or legal advice.